Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We're continuing to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 1. We have been reading the purport by Srila Prabhupada. So we're going to continue with the purport.
Unscrupulous persons go immediately to the 10th canto and especially to the 5 chapters which describe the Lord's Rasa dance. This portion of Srimad Bhagavatam is the most confidential part of this great literature. Unless one is thoroughly accomplished in the transcendental knowledge of the Lord, one is sure to misunderstand the Lord's worshipable transcendental pastimes called Rasa dance, his love affairs with the gopis. This subject matter is highly spiritual, and only the liberated persons who have gradually attained to the stage of Paramhansa can transcendentally relish this rasa dance. Srila Vyasadeva therefore gives the reader the chance to gradually develop spiritual realization before actually relishing the essence of the pastimes of the Lord. Therefore, he purposely invokes the Gayatri mantra, Dhimahi. This Gayatri mantra is meant for spiritually advanced people. When one is successful in chanting the Gayatri mantra, he can enter into the transcendental position of the Lord. One must therefore acquire Brahminical qualities or be perfectly situated in the quality of goodness in order to chant the Gayatri mantra successfully, and then attain to the stage of transcendentally realizing the Lord, his name, his fame, his qualities, and so on.
So Prabhupada is going on to explain that the most confidential pastimes of Lord Krishna, then the 10th canto. And of all those confidential pastimes, the most confidential is the rasa dance. So we may think it's like just some mundane, like how we see in the material world, we have love affairs between young boys and young girls. We may think it's like that, but no, it's a subject matter for the Paramhamsas, those who are Mahabhagavatas, the pure devotees of the Lord. They can actually understand uh, these pastimes. It's not material, in fact, it's subject. That's the reason Sukadev Goswami, he's a pure devotee of the Lord and he's speaking about it. And he's speaking about it later, not immediately. First, he's starting from the first canto. So Vyasadev, he is putting this Gayatri mantra Dhimahi here. So for our benefit, for our purification. Of course, Gayatri can be chanted by one who's a Brahmana, one who has gotten Brahmana initiation. He can chant Gayatri successfully. But here, Vyasadeva has compassion on us. He's putting this Gayatri mantra here, Dhimahi, so it can purify us and that we can be able to relish the transcendental pastimes of the Lord.
Srimad Bhagavatam is the narration of the Swarupa of the Lord manifested by his internal potency, and this potency is distinguished from the external potency which has manifested the cosmic world, which is within our experience. Srila Vyasadeva makes a clear distinction between the two in this sloka. Sri Vyasadeva says herein that the manifested internal potency is real, whereas the external manifested energy in the form of material existence is only temporary and illusory, like the marriage in the desert. In the desert marriage, there is no actual water. There is only the appearance of water. Real water is somewhere else. The manifested cosmic creation appears as reality, but reality of which this is but a shadow is in the spiritual world. Absolute truth is in the spiritual sky, not the material sky. In the material sky, everything is relative truth. That is to say, one truth depends on something else. This cosmic creation results from interaction of the three modes of nature, and the temporary manifestations are so created as to present an illusion of reality to the bewildered mind of the conditioned soul. who appears in so many species of life, including the higher demigods like Brahma, Indra, Chandra, and so on. In actuality, there is no reality in the manifested world. There appears to be reality, however, because of the true reality which exists in the spiritual world, where the personality of Godhead eternally exists with his transcendental paraphernalia.
Here, Shri Vyasadeva immediately is making a distinction. He's telling us the reality is in the spiritual world. The material world is a reflection of that reality. Material energy exists. Material energy of Krishna is eternal. But the manifestation of this material world, that we are seeing the universes being manifested, the creation happening, that is temporary. Sometimes there is manifestation, sometimes there is not. Whereas the spiritual world always exists. Always. The manifestation of in the spiritual world is always there. It's never destroyed. So here, what is the illusion is we are thinking that we are the body. That's the illusion. Our real form, our real body is in the spiritual world. The real experiences are there in the spiritual world. This material world is like a reflection of reality. You see, if the reflection exists, means the reality exists. Because we stand in front of the mirror, that's why we can see our reflection in the mirror. So the reality is there. Like Prabhupada is saying, in the mirage, in the desert, in a mirage, there is water. Because water exists. That's the reason the mirage exists. So this world is like that, temporary and illusory. So we are very much here in the material world. But what is the illusion? We think we are the body. That is our illusion. We are thinking this is a permanent place, that this is the absolute reality. But that is the illusion. The absolute truth, absolute reality is in the spiritual world. So this is what is the bewilderment. We are not able to distinguish. We are thinking that this is our permanent position, that we are the body. But the reality is in the spiritual world.
The chief engineer of a complicated construction does not personally take part in the construction, but he knows every nook and corner because everything is done under his direction. He knows everything about the construction, both directly and indirectly. Similarly, the personality of Godhead, who is the supreme engineer of this cosmic creation, knows every nook and corner. Although affairs are being carried out by demigods, beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, no one is independent in the material creation. The hand of the Lord is seen everywhere. All the material elements, as well as all the spiritual sparks, emanate from Him only. And whatever is created in this material world is but the interaction of two energies, the material and the spiritual, which emanate from the Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. A chemist can manufacture water in the chemical laboratory by mixing hydrogen and oxygen. But in reality, the living entity works in the laboratory under the direction of Supreme Lord, and the materials which he works are also supplied by the Lord. The Lord knows everything directly and indirectly, and he is cognizant of all the minute details, and he is fully independent. He is compared to a mine of gold, and the cosmic creations in so many different forms are compared to objects made from the gold, such as gold rings, necklaces, and so on. The gold ring and the gold necklace are qualitatively one with the gold in the mine, but quantitatively, the gold in the mine is different. Therefore, the absolute truth is simultaneously one and different. Nothing is absolutely equal with the absolute truth, but at the same time, nothing is independent of the absolute truth.
So everything belongs to the absolute truth. Everything. There is nothing or no one that does not belong to the absolute truth, that does not come from the absolute truth. the material energy, the spiritual energy, the living entities, we are all energies of Krishna, of God. We say God is omnipotent, so we are all his different energies. Simultaneous, one and different. Because we are part and parcel of God, so we have the same quality as God. God is Satchidananda. We are part and parcel, so we are also Satchidananda. But the quantity is completely different. Absolute truth is the complete whole, whereas we are part, tiny part and parcel. So Prabhupada is explaining here that the chief engineer, he knows everything that's happening in the construction, but he does not personally do the construction. He doesn't need to. He employs the other people. Similarly, the Lord, he knows everything that's happening everywhere, and he's working through his energies. Yeah, this material world, through the material energy, everything is being carried out by the plan of the Lord. He knows what's happening. Nothing or no one is independent of God. We may think we are independent, but at no moment of time we are independent of God. So a chemist, he's creating water in the lab by mixing hydrogen and oxygen. But who created that hydrogen, oxygen? Man cannot create hydrogen and oxygen. He can create water by mixing the chemicals. So the raw materials are given by God, the Supreme Lord. And the intelligence that he is getting is also given him by God. So God, Supreme Lord, he's the one who's supremely independent. He's fully independent and he knows everything. Prabhupada is giving the example, mine of gold and the gold rings. Quality is the same. Gold ring is also gold. The mine of gold is also gold. But quantity, completely different. So everything is one and different with the Lord. In the material world, whatever we are seeing is a combination of the material energy and we, the spiritual sparks, the spirit souls. That's what we are seeing in the material world. And both of us are working under the direction of God.
Conditioned souls, beginning from Brahma, who engineers the entire universe down to the insignificant ant, are all creating, but none of them is independent of the Lord, of the Supreme Lord. The materialist wrongly thinks that there is no creator other than his own self. This is called Maya or illusion. Because of his poor fund of knowledge, the materialist cannot see beyond the purview of his imperfect senses, and thus he thinks that matter automatically takes its own shape without the aid of a superior intelligence. This is refuted in this shloka by Srila Vyasadeva. Since the complete whole or the absolute truth is the source of everything, nothing can be independent of the body of the absolute truth. Whatever happens to the body quickly becomes known to the embodied. Similarly, the creation is the body of the absolute whole. Therefore, the absolute knows everything directly and indirectly that happens in the creation. In the Shruti,
So, I'm
yes,
sorry,
sorry.
I'll just say Lord Brahma is a creator, but he's the secondary creator of this universe. We are going to hear Sarga, creation, Visarga, secondary creation. So the creation happens by the Lord. Lord Brahma is just simply giving shape. We also are creators. Insignificant ant, Prabhupada saying the ant also creates the ant hill. He builds the ant hill. But we are all tiny creators. The Lord is the supreme creator. He is independent. We are all dependent. We are not independent creators. The materials are provided to us by the Supreme Lord. The intelligence is provided by the Supreme Lord. The energy is provided by the Supreme Lord. Our thinking that we are independent creators, that is our illusion. Our thinking we are independent of the Supreme Lord, that is our illusion. So Srila Vyasadeva is saying, Since the complete whole or the absolute truth is the source of everything, nothing can be independent of the body of the absolute truth. Everything belongs to the absolute truth.
In the Shruti mantra, it is also stated that the absolute whole or Brahman is the ultimate source of everything. Everything emanates from him and everything is maintained by him. And at the end, everything enters into him. That is the law of nature. In the Smriti mantra, the same is confirmed. It is said that the source from which everything emanates at the beginning of Brahma's millennium and the reservoir to which everything ultimately enters is the absolute truth or Brahman. Material scientists take it for granted that the ultimate source of the planetary system is the sun, but they are unable to explain the source of the sun. Herein, the ultimate source is explained. According to the Vedic literatures, Brahma, who may be compared to the sun, is not the ultimate creator. It is stated in this sloka that Brahma was taught Vedic knowledge by the personality of Godhead. One may argue that Brahma, being the original living being, could not be inspired because there was no other being living at that time. Herein it is stated that the Supreme Lords inspired the secondary creator Brahma in order that Brahma could carry out his creative functions. So the supreme intelligence behind all creation is the absolute Godhead, Sri Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Sri Krishna states that it is He who only superintends the creative energy, Prakriti, which constitutes the totality of matter. Therefore, Sri Vyasadeva does not worship Brahma, but the Supreme Lord, who guides Brahma in his creative activities. In this sloka, the particular words Abhigyan, Gya, and Swarat are significant. These two words distinguish the Supreme Lord from all other living entities. No other living entity is either Abhigya or Swarat. That is, no one is either fully cognizant or fully independent. Even Brahma has to meditate upon the Supreme Lord in order to create. Then what to speak of great scientists like Einstein? The brains of such a scientist are certainly not the products of any human being. Scientists cannot manufacture such a brain. And what to speak of foolish atheists who defy the authority of the Lord? Even Mayavadi impersonalists who flatter themselves that they can become one with the Lord are neither Abhigya or Swarat, nor Swarat. The impersonalists undergo severe austerities to acquire knowledge, to become one with the Lord. But ultimately, they become dependent on some rich disciple who supplies them with money to build monasteries and temples. Atheists like Ravan or Hiranyakashipu had to undergo severe penances before they could flout the authority of the Lord. But ultimately, they were rendered helpless and could not save themselves when the Lord appeared before them as cruel death. This is also the case with the modern atheist who also dare to flout the authority of the Lord. Such atheists will be dealt with similarly, for history repeats itself. Whenever men neglect the authority of the Lord, nature and her laws are there to penalize them. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.7 in the well-known verse, Yada yada hi dharmasya glyani. Whenever there is decline of dharma and a rise of adharma, O Arjuna, then I incarnate myself.
So Abhigya and Swarat, Srila Prabhupada is explaining to us. Srila Vyasadeva is saying Sri Krishna is Abhigya Swarat. Uh, so Abhigya, fully cognizant and independent, completely independent. So we think we are independent. Sure, we are independent to a certain degree. We have minute independence, but we are not completely independent. We are still dependent on something, someone, you know. To do anything, we are dependent. If we analyze, we may say, oh, I'm doing it by myself, but then we may be using something. But then who created that thing? We didn't create it. So we are dependent. And Abhigya, fully cognizant. Our knowledge is so limited. We barely even know what's happening in our body. So we may pretend that, okay, we are completely independent, we have complete knowledge, but that's not so. Prabhupada is giving the example of the sun, that the modern scientists say that the sun is uh, the source of the entire planetary system. But then who created the sun? Or that Lord Brahma, he's the creator, but then who gave the knowledge to Lord Brahma? Tene Brahma Hridaya Yadi Kavaye. Here, Vyasadeva is saying that Brahma got his creativity, this intelligence to create from Krishna. So no one is independent of God. Even Lord Brahma is not independent of God. So this is the difference between God and us, that he is completely independent and he is cognizant, completely cognizant of everything. Everything is created by him, maintained by him, enters into him. The Shruti and Smriti both are saying this. And the absolute truth is the cause of creation, maintainer of the creation, and the destructor of the creation. So there's a difference between God and us. Our positions are completely different. God is the complete whole. We are a tiny part of the complete whole.
That the Supreme Lord is all perfect is confirmed in all Shruti's mantras. It is said in Shruti mantras that all the perfect Lord, through a glance, that the all perfect Lord threw a glance over matter and thus created all living beings. The living beings are parts and parcel of the Lord, and He impregnates the vast material creation with seeds of spiritual sparks. Thus, thus the creative energies are set in motion to enact so many wonderful creations. An atheist may argue that God is no more expert than a watchmaker, but of course, God is greater because He can create machines in duplicate male and female forms. The male and the female forms of different types of machineries go on producing innumerable similar machines without God's further attention. If a man could manufacture such a set of machines that could produce other machines without his attention, then he could approach the intelligence of God. But that is not possible, for each machine has to be handled individually. Therefore, no one can create as well as God. Another name for God is Asamordva, which means that no one is equal to or greater than Him. Param Satyam, or the Supreme Truth, is He who has no equal or superior. This is confirmed in Shruti mantras. It is said that before the creation of material universe, there existed the Lord only, who is master of everyone. That Lord instructed Brahma in Vedic knowledge. That Lord has to be obeyed in all respects. Anyone who wants to get rid of the material entanglement must surrender unto him. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita.
So the creation happens because the Lord, He agitates the material energy. That's how the creation is happening. And we, the parts and parcels, the spirit souls, are put inside this material creation by the Supreme Lord, by the glance of the Supreme Lord. And this is how the creation begins to happen. The Shruti mantras are saying this. So we can see all the scriptures are saying that how the creation happened. God has created. Someone who does not believe in God may think, oh, God is like Prabhupada is saying, no more than an expert watchmaker. Like, okay, even a watchmaker can create a watch and such a beautiful, complex creation. But nobody can make a watch that can multiply by itself. That, you create two watches and those two watches starts multiplying, creating new watches by themselves. But God does that. He's done it. He creates man, woman, and then the creation goes on and on. More and more human beings are created. And so that's the intelligence of God. Like a fruit, there are so many seeds. Then we sow the seed, and the tree comes, and then again there are so many fruits, so many trees in there. But we can't create like God can create. So another name of God is Asamordhva. What does Asamordhva mean? Asamordhva.
No one is greater than him or equal to him.
Yes, that's right. Asamordhva. And Param Satyam
Supreme truth.
is supreme truth. Yeah. He has no equal or no superior. He's the supreme truth, Param Satyam. So these terms are for God, nobody else. Asamordhva, Param Satyam. Okay. The Shruti mantras are saying that. And Prabhupada is saying anyone who wants to get out of the material world, as Krishna says, surrender unto Krishna, surrender unto me, Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita.
Unless one surrenders unto the lotus feet of Supreme Lord, it is certain that he will be bewildered. When an intelligent man surrenders unto the lotus feet of Krishna and knows completely that Krishna is the cause of all causes, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, then only can such an intelligent man become a Mahatma or great soul. But such a great soul is rarely seen. Only the Mahatmas can understand that the Supreme Lord is primeval cause of all creations. He is the Parama or ultimate truth, because all other truths are relative to him. He is omniscient. For him, there is no illusion.
So Krishna, one who understands Krishna as cause of all causes, then he can become a Mahatma. He's intelligent because he surrenders to Krishna, surrenders to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Because he surrendered, then he can understand Krishna. So we can see if we at all want to understand Krishna, we have to surrender. And Lord Chaitanya showed us the way of surrender in this Kali Yuga. Surrender begins by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And then the pure devotee, he's a Mahatma. And the pure devotee can understand that the Lord is cause of all causes. And why is he called Param or ultimate truth?
Because all other truths are relative to him.
Yeah, everything is relative to him. What we are seeing in the material world, these are all relative truths. They're all cold, heat, light, dark. They're all relative to each other. It's only the Supreme Lord that is completely independent. And he is omniscient. He has no illusion. God is never put into illusion.
Some Mayavadi scholars argue that Srimad Bhagavatam was not compiled by Sri Vyasadeva, and some of them suggest that this book is a modern creation written by someone named Vopadeva. In order to refute such meaningless arguments, Sri Sridhara Swami points out that there is reference to the Bhagavatam in many of the oldest Puranas. This first sloka of Bhagavatam begins with Gayatri Mantra. There is reference to this in the Matsya Purana, which is the oldest Purana. In that Purana, it is said with reference to the Gayatri Mantra in Bhagavatam that there are many narrations of spiritual instructions beginning with the Gayatri Mantra. And there is the history of Vratasura. Anyone who makes a gift of this great work on a full moon day attains to the highest perfection of life by returning to Godhead. There is reference to the Bhagavatam in other Puranas also, where it is clearly stated that this work was finished in 12 cantos, which include 18,000 slokas. In the Padma Purana also there is reference to the Bhagavatam in a conversation between Gautama and Maharaj Ambarisha. The king was advised therein to read regularly Srimad Bhagavatam if he desired liberation from material bondage. Under the circumstance, there is no doubt about the authority of the Bhagavatam. Within the past 500 years, many erudite scholars and acharyas like Jiva Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Vallabhacharya, and many other distinguished scholars even after the time of Lord Chaitanya made elaborate commentaries on the Bhagavatam. And the serious student who would do well to attempt to go through them to better relish the transcendental messages.
Here, Srila Prabhupada is showing us the authenticity, the authority of Srimad Bhagavatam, because someone may say, oh, Bhagavatam is just somebody's imagination, or, some modern creation written by some Vopadev, not Vyasadev. So Sridhar Swami is a great acharya. He's written commentary on Bhagavatam. He's, he's writing, there's so many references that Bhagavatam is referred to in the Matsya Purana, which is the oldest Purana. And then there's reference to Srimad Bhagavat, and also the Matsya Purana is referring to the pastime of Ritasura. We are going to hear it in the later cantos. And Prabhupada points out that anyone because Bhagavatam itself says it, Bhagavatam says that whoever gives a gift of Bhagavatam on the full moon day, he goes back home, back to Godhead. So there is a reference of Bhagavatam in other Puranas also, and there is reference of Bhagavatam. Gautam Muni is instructing to Maharaj Ambarish that regularly read from Bhagavatam if you want to get out of the material world, if you want liberation from material world. So many great acharyas have written commentaries on Bhagavatam. Prabhupada is pointing out Jiva Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Vallabhacharya, and many others, even after Lord Chaitanya, have written valuable commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srila Prabhupada's purports, he has given us these beautiful purports. He has referred to so many commentaries of the various acharyas, and then he has given us these purports. So Srila Prabhupada has studied so many commentaries of the various acharyas. And that's why his purports are so valuable to us.
Hare Krishna, anyone wants to continue to read?
Okay, I can.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur specifically deals with the original and pure sex psychology, Adi Rasa, devoid of all mundane inebriety. The whole material creation is moving under the principle of sex life. In modern civilization, sex life is the focal point for all activities. Wherever one turns his face, he sees sex life predominate. Therefore, sex life is not unreal. It is reality. Its reality is experienced in the spiritual world. The material sex life is but a perverted reflection of original fact. The original fact is in the absolute truth, and thus the absolute truth cannot be impersonal. It is not possible to be impersonal and contain pure sex life. Consequently, the impersonalist philosophers have given indirect impetus to the abominable mundane sex life because they have overstressed the impersonality of ultimate truth. Consequently, man without information of the actual spiritual form of sex has accepted perverted material sex life as the all in all. There is the distinction between sex life in the diseased material condition and spiritual sex life.
So here Prabhupada is explaining that, okay, there is, we said earlier that the material world is a reflection, perverted reflection of the reality. Reality is in the spiritual world. Here in the material world is only a reflection. So Prabhupada is pointing out that this whole material creation is moving on sex life. But where is the reality? So reality is there in the spiritual world. There is spiritual sex, pure sex, that is love, not this perverted sex as we know it. So the impersonalists, by saying that God is not a person, has in fact bewildered all of us. They have overstressed the impersonality of the ultimate truth, because everything has to exist in God. There cannot be that we have something and God does not. It's not possible. So because the pure original spiritual sex exists, that's why we see a perverted version of sex as we see it, but it's perverted, whereas the pure one is in spiritual, and that is love. That is completely love.
This Srimad Bhagavatam will gradually elevate the unbiased reader to the highest perfectional stage of transcendence. It will enable him to transcend the three modes of material activities: fruitive actions, speculative philosophy, and worship of functional deities as inculcated in Vedic verses.
Prabhupada is saying, if we can hear the Srimad Bhagavatam without any bias, accept it as Bhagavatam is, without any personal agenda, personal biases, then it can raise one to the spiritual platform. Helps one transcend the three modes of material activities, means above the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, means coming to the transcendental platform. The three modes of material activities: fruitive actions, speculative philosophy, and worship of functional deities as inculcated in Vedic verses, means giving up the rituals just for the sake of performing them, but actually worshipping God. Giving up speculative philosophy, using our mind to imagine about God, but actually hearing about God, understanding God from the authority of Bhagavatam, giving up material activities and taking up spiritual activities. So this is how one can come to the spiritual platform. Did anyone have any comments or questions?
No, all clear.
Okay. And we'll go to the second verse. Dharma prohijita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam.
Dharma prajohit hita ketvatra parmo nirmastra anam sattam.
Vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapatrayonmulanam.
Vedam vastavamatra vastu shivadam taptrayo namulanam.
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim va parer Ishvaraha.
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim va pareshvara.
Sadhyo hridi avarudhyatetra kirtibhi shushrushubhistachanat.
Shabdo hridvarudhyatetre kritibhi shushrushubhishta shanat.
completely rejecting all religious. I'm sorry, please continue to read.
Okay. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavad Puran propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion. For the welfare of all such truth uproots the, the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Religion includes four primary subjects, namely pious activities, economic development, satisfaction of senses, and finally liberation from the material bondage. Irreligious life is barbarous condition. Indeed, human life begins when religion begins. Eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating are the four principles of animal life. These are common both to the animals and to human beings. But religion is the extra function of the human being. Without religion, human life is no better than animal life. Therefore, in human societies, there is some form of religion which aims to self-realization and which makes reference to man's eternal relationship with God.
So, the religion, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, engaging in religious activities to get opulence, so to get more sense enjoyment, and finally getting to liberation. This is what separates man from animal, because man and animals both eat, sleep, mate, and defend. But there is an extra function that the human being does, that is follows religious principles. So the aim of religion is actually to love God. That is real religion, which teaches one to love God.
In the lower stage of human civilization, there is always competition to lord it over the material nature, or in other words, there is a continuous rivalry of satisfy the senses. Driven by such consciousness, man turns to religion. He thus performs pious activities of religious functions in order to gain something material. But if such material gains are obtainable in other ways, then so-called religious is neglected. This is the situation in modern civilization. Man is thriving economically. So at present, he is not very interested in religion. Churches, mosques, or temples are now practically vacant. Men are more interested in factories, shops, cinemas than in religious places, which were erected by their forefathers. This practically proves that religion is performed for some economic gains. Economic gains are needed for sense gratification. Often, when one is baffled in the pursuit of sense gratification, he takes to salvation and tries to become one with the Supreme Lord. Consequently, all these states are simply different types of sense gratification.
So, what Bhagavatam is saying, that Our consciousness is sense gratification. We want to enjoy the senses. Now, to enjoy the senses, we understand that we need facilities. So then we hear, if I do pious activities, I will get pious results. With that pious result, I can get more facility to enjoy the senses. So because of this, then man engages in pious activities, just so that one can enjoy the senses more. So Prabhupada is helping us understand that if there was any other way that we can enjoy the senses, then we will give up such religion. We will give up such pious activity because our motive is to enjoy the senses. So then this kind of religion is neglected, as we are seeing now. People are turning to factories, working more. So that's why people are not interested in religion, churches, temples. They are all mostly empty. So this shows practically that people engage in some kind of pious activity to get more mm, benefits to enjoy the senses. And then when one is frustrated, after one is frustrated trying to enjoy the senses, one comes to frustration, then one says, okay, I want to become God now. I'm too frustrated. I don't want to exist anymore as a individual soul. So I'm going to become God. So all these are actually, that's why they're called Kaitava Dharma, cheating religion, because they're actually sense gratification packaged as religion. They're all states of simply different types of sense gratification. Because the desire to become one with God is also, oh, I'm not able to enjoy, I'm frustrated, I want to become God. So it all again comes to the false ego. So these are just under a package nicely, but it is Kaitava Dharma, cheating religion, not real religion.
In the Vedas, the above mentioned 4 activities are prescribed in the regulative way so that there will not be any undue competition for sense gratification. But Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental to all these sense gratificatory activities. It is purely transcendental literature, which can be understood only by the pure devotees of the Lord, who are transcendental to competitive sense gratification. In the material world, there is competition between animal and animal, man and man, community and community, nation and nation. But the devotees of Lord rise above such competitions. They do not compete with the materialist because they are on the path back to the Godhead, where life is eternal and blissful. Such transcendentalists are non-envious and pure in heart. In the material world, everyone is envious of everyone else, and therefore there is competition. But the transcendental devotees of the Lord are not only free from material envy, but the well wishers to everyone, and they strive to establish a competitionless society with God in the center. The contemporary socialist conception of the competitionless society is artificial because in the socialist state there is competition for the post of dictator. From the point of view of the Vedas or from the point of view of the common human activities, sense gratification is the basis of material life. There are 3 paths mentioned in the Vedas. One involves fruitive activities to gain promotion to better planets. Another involves worshipping different demigods for promotion to the planets of the demigods. And another involves the realizing the absolute truth and his impersonal feature and becoming one with him.
So that the Vedas, they are telling us dharma, artha, kama, moksha to help us regulate our senses so we don't overdo anything. We can, not get carried away with anything. We can regulately enjoy the senses. But Bhagavatam is above this. It's transcendental, purely transcendental. It's for the devotees. The Prabhupada is pointing out material world, everyone is competing with each other. Man is competing with man, animal is competing with animal. The socialist government, they say that we are based on no competition, but yet there's competition to become the ruler of that country, that state. So there is still competition. The only way truly there can be no competition if we can put God in the center. So the devotees don't want to compete. They just want to go back home, back to Godhead, to go back to the spiritual world where the life is eternal and blissful. The pure devotees, they are completely non-envious, they are pure. They are well-wishers of everyone. And they want to bring a society with God in the center so that everyone can live peacefully and at the end of life go back home, back to Godhead. So the pure devotee is the greatest well-wisher of the entire society. So the Vedas are mentioning the karma kand path, that one does these rituals to go to higher planets, or one worships the demigods to go to the planet of the demigods, or then another involves realizing the absolute truth and his impersonal feature and becoming one with God, or the desire to become one with God. So these are there, of course, in the Vedas, but this is meant for the gradual elevation of consciousness to bring one to the point of pure devotional service, to bring one to the point of uh, understanding that we have a loving relationship with God. So at least like how Krishna explains the yoga ladder in Bhagavad Gita, that one begins with karma kand, then goes to gyan, then dhyan, then comes to bhakti. So that's what the Vedas are doing. Gradual elevation of consciousness. So we'll stop here for today. Does anyone have any comment or any question?
Hare Krishna.
Yes. Hare Krishna.
So Vedas are saying that, but we don't know the Vedas and we are still in that, sense gratification. And most of us, right?
Yes.
Yes. So
Yes. Mhm.
I don't know. I'm not sure how to say this. I don't know what is exactly the difference. Now we are reading, right? Srimad Bhagavatam.
Mhm. Yes.
Um, can you elaborate more on, probably we don't know the
Yeah.
Vedas, but we are still into that sense gratification, but we are also now reading Srimad Bhagavatam. And so where do we stand? So we are still going to
So
go after sense gratification towards moksha, right? According to the Vedas, karma kanda and process and all that. But we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam too.
yes.
So
And then Bhagavatam says, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavate Uttama Shloke, Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki, that one who regularly, by regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So we continue to hear Bhagavatam, and Krishna, who's in our heart, Paramatma, who's in our heart, he cleans up. Shanvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantasto hi Abhadrani Vidunoti Sruhit Satam. This is Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 17. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which in themselves are virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So what we can do is we continue here Bhagavatam, we continue serving the devotee, continue chanting the holy name. And Krishna who's in the heart, he is the one who helps us to clean up our heart, our consciousness, takes away cleans up all this material desires which are there. It's a gradual process. It's not that we switch off, like, for someone it may be in one instance, but for most of us it's a gradual process.
Yes, so true and beautiful. Yeah, we are guided, right? We are guided by
Yeah,
him.
so
Yeah.
continue to associate with the devotees, serve the devotees, hear Bhagavatam, chant the holy name, worship the deity. Krishna helps.
Yes.
And
Hare
that's the
Krishna.
reason Krishna himself is telling to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita that you give up, rise above the flowery language of the Vedas, which is dealing with karma kand, because the karma kand activities they seem very nice and one may get distracted in it. One can get distracted that, oh, my goal is actually to revive my love for God. But one may get distracted into, okay, let me go see the heavenly planets. Let me try to enjoy what's there. And so Bhagavatam is the essence of all the Vedic scriptures, all the Vedas. It's the cream of the essence. We're going to hear later that how Srila Vyasadeva, he compiles the Bhagavatam. Why does he compile it? He's written all the Vedas, the Puranas, the Upanishads. He's separated the Vedas. He's done so much work, but he's not happy. Narad Muni told him, because you have not described Sri Krishna and his beautiful pastimes and devotional service to Krishna. And that's how all the essence of the Vedas is Bhagavatam. So by studying Bhagavatam means one has studied all the Vedas.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. What is Upasana Kand?
Even higher than the Upasana Kand division, the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the next paragraph that we are going to read, right?
Yeah, no, I was just wondering what is Upasana is worship, is it? Upasana
Worship.
Kand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Worship.
हरे कृष्णा भक्ति भी बोल सकते उसको भक्ति
Bhakti.
वो ज्ञान हो गया ज्ञान कांड कर्म कांड एंड भक्ति पहला वाला पहला ज्ञान
But
है
here,
एंड अनदर कर्म कांड कर्मा एंड थर्ड भक्ति
okay.
No, but
उपासना यानी भक्ति होएगी
but then Srimad Bhagavatam is higher than that.
That's
higher
what I'm
than
reading.
Upasana
Yeah, that's what
Kand.
I'm reading.
I thought that
Yeah.
is already bhakti, right? Upasana Kand.
उपासना वर्शिप भक्ति पूजा
But how come it's more superior then?
So let's try to read it tomorrow.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Let's get into that tomorrow. We'll
Right.
explore it, what they're trying to say.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. And this is
Oh.
going to encourage us to come back and read tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay.
My
Okay.
God, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hare
Srila
Krishna.
Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta
Yeah.
Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.